Harold Kim Philby stands as one of the most damaging double agents of the 20th century. A high-ranking officer in Britain's MI6, he was secretly a committed communist who served as a mole for the Soviet Union for over 3 decades. Philby was recruited into Soviet intelligence in the 1930s while at Cambridge University, as part of the notorious Cambridge 5 spy ring. He and his colleagues infiltrated the British establishment, driven by a deep ideological belief in communism. He cultivated the perfect cover, rising steadily through the ranks of MI6. He was seen as a charming and capable British intelligence officer. His position gave him access to the highest levels of British and American intelligence. He was even appointed head of the anti-Soviet section of MI6, putting him in charge of hunting for spies just like himself. Throughout his career, Philby passed thousands of classified documents to his KGB handlers, compromising countless operations. Suspicion first fell on Philby in 1951 when he tipped off 2 colleagues that they were about to be exposed. Their sudden defection to Moscow pointed directly towards a third man. Despite intense suspicion, Philby brazenly maintained his innocence and was officially cleared. However, in 1963, a high-level KGB defector provided new, irrefutable evidence of his guilt. Faced with certain arrest, Philby vanished from Beirut. He resurfaced in Moscow, where he was hailed as a hero. He spent the rest of his life in the Soviet Union, disillusioned with the reality of the system he had served. Kim Philby's betrayal shook the British intelligence service to its core. His career remains a chilling case study in the power of ideological conviction and a perfectly placed mole. Aldrich Ames was a 31-year veteran of the Central Intelligence Agency, who became one of the most destructive moles in American history. Unlike ideologically driven spies of the past, Ames was motivated purely by money, selling his country's most sensitive secrets to the Soviet Union and later Russia for a fortune. Ames was a counterintelligence officer, tasked with recruiting Soviet officials to spy for the US. He was considered a mediocre but competent officer with an expensive lifestyle. In 1985, facing financial difficulties, Ames walked into the Soviet embassy and offered to sell secrets. In his first meeting, he handed over the identities of 2 KGB officers secretly working for the CIA. The Soviets paid him $50,000 and Ames was hooked. He began a systematic process of selling information, eventually receiving over $4.6 million from the KGB. Ames's treason had a devastating impact. He methodically betrayed virtually every major Soviet agent working for the CIA. His information led to the compromise of at least 100 intelligence operations. The human cost was catastrophic. At least 10 of the sources he exposed were arrested and executed. For years, Ames lived a lavish lifestyle far beyond his official salary. A dedicated team of CIA and FBI investigators eventually began a mole hunt, narrowing the list of suspects down to Ames. He was finally arrested in February 1994. He pleaded guilty to espionage and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Aldrich Ames's case was a brutal wake-up call for the CIA, demonstrating a catastrophic failure of internal security. Robert Hanssen was an FBI agent who committed what is often called the worst intelligence disaster in U.S. history. Operating as a mole for over 2 decades, he was a man of deep contradictions, a devout Catholic and family man who secretly sold his country's most vital secrets to Moscow. Hanssen was a highly intelligent but socially awkward counterintelligence agent. He was driven by a complex mix of ego, intellectual challenge, and a need for money. His espionage began in 1979. He operated for several years, then stopped, only to restart his spying in 1985 with the KGB. For 22 years, Hanssen provided an enormous volume of highly classified material. He compromised U.S. nuclear war plans, weapons technology, and the identities of dozens of human sources. In one of his most damaging acts, he revealed the existence of a highly secret and expensive tunnel the FBI had built under the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., and to eavesdrop on their communications, rendering the entire operation useless. The FBI knew for years that a high-level mole was operating within its ranks, but they couldn't identify him. After the arrest of Ames, the mole hunt intensified. A young agent named Eric O'Neill was assigned to work as Hanssen's clerk, tasked with secretly observing him. The final breakthrough came when the FBI paid a former KGB officer millions of dollars for a file that contained a recording of the American mole. The voice on the tape was identified as Hanssen's. The FBI caught him in the act of making a dead drop in a Virginia park. On February 18, 2001, Hanssen was arrested. He had just placed a package containing classified documents in a trash bag at the dead drop site. He reportedly asked the agents who arrested him, "What took you so long?" To avoid the death penalty, Hanssen pleaded guilty to 15 counts of espionage and agreed to a full debriefing. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms and sent to the Odessa Florence Supermax prison, where he was held in solitary confinement. Robert Hanssen passed away in his cell in 2023. His long and destructive career as a spy forced the FBI to completely overhaul its internal security procedures, as his betrayal from within was a wound that shook the very foundation of the Bureau. Richard Sorge was a Soviet military intelligence officer who operated as a devoted Nazi journalist in Germany and Japan. Posing as an ardent fascist, he is regarded as one of the greatest spies, providing intelligence that decisively shaped World War II. A German national and committed communist, Sorge infiltrated the German embassy in Tokyo, becoming the trusted confidant of the German ambassador himself, giving him unparalleled access to top-secret Axis communications. From his base in Tokyo, Sorge ran a highly effective spy ring, codenamed Ramsey. He and his agents gathered intelligence from high-level sources in Japanese politics and the German military, transmitting their findings back to Moscow via coded radio messages. In May 1941, he provided his first piece of world-changing intelligence, the exact date of Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union. Tragically, Stalin chose to ignore Sorge's repeated warnings. The invasion went ahead as predicted, leading to catastrophic losses. In September 1941, he provided his second crucial piece of intelligence, that Japan had no intention of attacking the Soviet Union from the east. This time, Stalin listened. He transferred elite Siberian divisions from the eastern border, and these troops arrived just in time to defend Moscow, a turning point on the Eastern Front. Sorge's luck eventually ran out. The Japanese counterintelligence service, the Kempitai, had been slowly closing in on his radio transmissions. In October 1941, his spy ring was uncovered and he was arrested. He was held for 3 years. The Soviet Union disavowed him completely, refusing to acknowledge his existence. On November 7, 1944, Richard Sorge was hanged in Tokyo. It was not until 1964 that he was posthumously declared a hero of the Soviet Union, finally recognizing his critical contributions. Juan Pujol García, Garbo, was the most successful double agent of World War II. A Spanish citizen, he created a fictitious network of sub-agents and used it to feed misinformation to the Germans, securing the success of the D-Day landings. Initially, Pujol was rejected by Allied intelligence. Undeterred, he convinced the German Abwehr to recruit him as an agent. The Germans sent him to Britain, but Pujol moved to Lisbon and invented reports about London using a tourist guide. His reports were so convincing that the Germans trusted him completely. After his fabricated reports were intercepted by British intelligence, MI5 realized his potential and brought him to Britain. They gave him the code name Garbo, because he was the greatest actor in the world, and they helped him expand his fictitious spy network. With the help of MI5, Garbo's network grew to include 27 invented sub-agents. He wrote hundreds of reports, creating the illusion of a major German spy ring. Garbo's most critical mission was Operation Fortitude, the deception campaign to mislead the Germans about D-Day's location. His job was to convince them the invasion would be at Pas-de-Calais and not Normandy. On June 6, 1944, Garbo reported the Normandy landings as a diversion, insisting the main attack was still aimed at Calais. The German high command believed him. They held back their crucial panzer divisions from Normandy for 2 months, waiting for a phantom invasion. This delay gave the Allies time to secure their beachhead. Garbo was awarded the Iron Cross by Germany and the MBE by Britain. After the war, he faked his death and moved to Venezuela, his incredible story not revealed for many years. Virginia Hall was one of the most effective spies of World War II. Operating with a prosthetic leg she nicknamed Cuthbert, she organized resistance networks deep inside occupied France, becoming one of the most wanted Allied agents by the Gestapo. An American, Hall was rejected by the U.S. Foreign Service because of her gender and disability. Determined to fight fascism, she joined Britain's Special Operations Executive, the SOE. In 1941, she became the first female SO agent sent into France. Based in Lyon, she spent 15 months building an effective resistance network. Her work was so effective that she came to the attention of Gestapo chief Klaus Barbie, who reportedly considered her as the most dangerous of all Allied spies and launched a massive manhunt for the limping lady. As the Gestapo closed in, she made a harrowing escape, trekking 50 miles over the snow-covered Pyrenees Mountains into Spain. Undeterred, she joined the American OSS and insisted on being sent back into France in 1944. Disguised as an elderly milkmaid, she organized local resistance groups and directed them in a highly effective guerrilla campaign, destroying bridges and disrupting German troop movements. For her extraordinary heroism, she was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the only civilian woman to receive it in World War II. After the war, Hall became one of the first female officers in the newly formed CIA. Virginia Hall's legacy is one of unbreakable will. She defied every limitation, proving one determined individual could be a pivotal force in the fight for freedom. Eli Cohen was an Israeli spy who conducted one of the most successful intelligence operations in history. Under the alias Kamal Amin Thabeh, he infiltrated the highest levels of the Syrian government, providing intelligence that proved decisive in Israel's victory in the Six-Day War. Born in Egypt, Cohen was recruited by Mossad and trained to create his deep cover identity, a wealthy Syrian businessman returning from Argentina. He established his cover and moved to Damascus in 1962. His charm and wealth allowed him to embed himself within Syria's elite. He developed close friendships with top generals, giving him access to Syria's military plans and their fortifications in the Golan Heights. In a famous coup, he toured the Golan Heights and suggested planting eucalyptus trees near the secret bunkers for shade. The Israelis now had perfect markers for every Syrian position. Almost every day, Cohen secretly transmitted intelligence back to Israel using a hidden radio. In January 1965, Syrian counterintelligence, aided by Soviet experts, detected his transmissions. They swept the city and pinpointed the signal to his apartment. He was caught in the act, interrogated, and put on a public show trial. Despite international appeals, he was sentenced to death. On May 18, 1965, Eli Cohen was publicly hanged in Damascus. 2 years later, during the Six-Day War, the intelligence he provided was instrumental. The Israeli Defense Forces, using the eucalyptus trees as targets, conquered the strategic plateau in just 2 days. He remains an enduring national hero in Israel. Klaus Fuchs was a German-born theoretical physicist and a key scientist on the Manhattan Project, who was also a committed communist spy. He provided the Soviet Union with highly classified scientific data that allowed them to accelerate the development of their own atomic and hydrogen bombs, fundamentally altering the balance of power in the Cold War. A brilliant physicist who fled Germany, Fuchs was a dedicated communist and began passing information to the Soviets. He was granted British citizenship and selected to be part of the British delegation working on the Manhattan Project. From 1944, Fuchs worked at Los Alamos. He was involved in critical calculations for the plutonium bomb. While there, Fuchs passed vital information to his KGB handlers, including the complete schematics for the plutonium bomb. The intelligence he provided was a massive shortcut for the Soviet nuclear program. In August 1949, the Soviets detonated their first atomic bomb, a near-exact copy of the American device. After the war, Fuchs continued spying in Britain, passing on crucial data about the hydrogen bomb. U.S. counterintelligence through the Venona Project discovered a mole had been at Los Alamos, and the investigation pointed to Fuchs. Under interrogation by MI5 agent William Scardon in 1950, Fuchs eventually confessed to his long career of espionage. He calmly and methodically detailed the information he had passed to the Soviets over the years. He was convicted of violating the Official Secrets Act and sentenced to 14 years in prison, the maximum penalty for passing secrets to an allied nation as the USSR was during the war. He served 9 years and was released in 1959. Upon his release, Fuchs emigrated to East Germany and resumed his scientific career. His espionage remains one of the most consequential acts of the 20th century, ensuring there would be 2 nuclear superpowers, not just one. Margarita Zelle, better known as Mata Hari, is perhaps the most famous female spy in history. A glamorous performer and master of seduction, she became the ultimate femme fatale. During World War I, she was accused of spying for Germany and executed by the French. To this day, the true extent of her espionage remains debated. Born in the Netherlands, she moved to Paris and reinvented herself. She adopted the name Mata Hari and claimed to be a Javanese princess, captivating audiences with her exotic dance performances. She became a sensation, a celebrated figure whose real power was as a courtesan to high-ranking military officers and politicians. As a citizen of the neutral Netherlands, she could travel freely after the war began. This, combined with her connections, made her a person of interest. It's believed she accepted money from a German diplomat to provide information. At the same time, French counter-espionage led by Captain Georges Ledoux also attempted to recruit her to spy for France. She accepted their offer as well, likely seeing it as a way to earn money and continue her lavish lifestyle. The crucial turning point came when French intelligence intercepted a German radio message from Madrid to Berlin. The message described the activities of a German spy code named H-21, and the details provided in the message clearly identified the spy as Mata Hari. In February 1917, she was arrested in Paris. The French, suffering from disastrous losses at the front and desperate for a scapegoat, put her on trial. The prosecution claimed she was responsible for the deaths of at least 50,000 French soldiers. Her trial was flawed, based on circumstantial evidence. She admitted to taking German money but insisted she never gave them valuable intelligence. Despite her denial, she was found guilty. On October 15, 1917, Mata Hari was executed by a French firing squad. This moment created her legend. Even though historians agree she caused little real harm, her name would forever be linked to the idea of a dangerous and seductive spy, the classic femme fatale. Anna Chapman was a member of a Russian deep-cover espionage ring who became a media sensation upon her arrest in 2010. Her case provided a fascinating glimpse into Cold War-style sleeper cells in the 21st century. Born in Russia, she was the daughter of a senior KGB diplomat. She moved to London, married a British man, and later relocated to New York in 2009. In New York, she posed as a real estate entrepreneur, attempting to build a network of contacts. Her espionage activity involved using a laptop to communicate wirelessly with a Russian official. Chapman and her fellow spies were part of the Illegals program, a network of deep-cover agents. Their mission was to embed themselves in American society over many years. The ring had been under FBI surveillance for years in an investigation code named Ghost Stories. The FBI moved in when one spy came close to a U.S. cabinet official. An undercover FBI agent met with Chapman, giving her a fake passport to deliver. Spooked, Chapman called her father, a former KGB agent, who told her to turn the passport over to the police. She did, and the FBI arrested her and 9 other members of the ring. Days later, the spies were part of a dramatic prisoner exchange. The 10 Russian agents were swapped for 4 individuals imprisoned in Russia. When she returned to Russia, Chapman wasn't treated like a disgraced spy. She became a celebrity. Overnight, she turned into a media sensation, landing modeling gigs and TV appearances. Her story was a reminder to the world. The Cold War may be over, but the shadow game of undercover agents never truly ended. Oleg Gordievsky was one of the most important Western assets of the Cold War. A high-ranking KGB colonel, he became a double agent for Britain's MI6, providing intelligence that gave Thatcher and Reagan insight into the Soviet leadership. His disillusionment with the Soviet system began after the Prague Spring. While stationed in Copenhagen, he was secretly recruited by MI6. His value skyrocketed in 1982 when he was promoted to a senior position at the Soviet embassy in London, eventually becoming the KGB chief of station. In 1983, he provided his most crucial intelligence. He warned MI6 that the Soviet leadership was terrified of a surprise nuclear attack and was misinterpreting a NATO military exercise, Able Archer 83 as the real thing. This war scare intelligence was a bombshell, revealing the risk of accidental nuclear war was dangerously high. This influenced Reagan's shift towards dialogue. Gordievsky also provided the West with its first understanding of Mikhail Gorbachev, identifying him as a reformer. In May 1985, Gordievsky was suddenly recalled to Moscow. His identity had been betrayed by the American CIA mole, Aldrich Ames. In Moscow, he was interrogated but denied everything. Knowing his execution was imminent, he activated a daring MI6 escape plan. He was driven across the heavily guarded border by British diplomatic cars, successfully evading sniffer dogs and KGB patrols. It was one of the most brazen and successful exfiltration operations of the Cold War. Safely in Britain, Oleg Gordievsky continued to advise Western governments. His intelligence was about the psychology of the Soviet leadership, providing a window into their fears that may have helped prevent a nuclear catastrophe. Benedict Arnold is the most infamous traitor in American history. A brilliant general of the Continental Army, his name became a synonym for betrayal after he conspired to surrender West Point to the British. Early in the war, Arnold was one of Washington's most effective commanders, instrumental in key victories like the Battle of Saratoga, where he was severely wounded. Appointed as the military governor of Philadelphia, Arnold grew resentful. He felt he was passed over for promotions, unappreciated by Congress, and he fell into deep debt trying to maintain a lavish lifestyle to impress his young and loyalist-sympathizing wife Peggy Shippen. Embittered and in need of money, Arnold made a fateful decision. He began secret correspondence with the British, offering his services for a price. His primary contact was Major John Andre, the head of British intelligence. In 1780, Arnold secured command of the fortress at West Point, a linchpin of the entire American defense. He then entered into a plot to surrender the fort to the British in exchange for £20,000, a sum equal to millions of dollars today. The plot unraveled by pure chance. Major Andre, returning from a secret meeting with Arnold, was captured by American militiamen. The incriminating documents detailing the West Point plan were discovered hidden in his boot. When Arnold learned of Andre's capture, he knew the plot was exposed. He abandoned his post and narrowly escaped to a British warship, the HMS Vulture, just hours before George Washington arrived at West Point for a planned meeting with him. The British kept their promise. Arnold was given a commission as a brigadier general in the British Army and a sum of money, though less than he was promised. He went on to lead British forces in raids against American targets. His betrayal was a devastating blow to American morale and a deep personal wound for George Washington, who had implicitly trusted him. Major John Andre was hanged as a spy, while Arnold's name was systematically erased from American war records. After the war, Arnold moved to London, where he was despised by both the Americans he had betrayed and the British who distrusted him. He died in obscurity, his legacy forever cemented in American culture as the ultimate archetype of a traitor. We've just taken a dive into the hidden world of espionage and the people who lived in the shadows. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe and drop a comment.